Jesus, King, Abraham, Boaz, Baruch, Jesus, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Joseph, Mary.
28. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? 29. How long has that been? 30. What was the nationality of Ruth? 31. What's the modern name for Moabites? 32. What is the Moroccan Empire? 33. What is the modern name for Mexico? 34. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco? 35. Where did we get the name Jesus? 36. What's the name Jesus mean? 37. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes.
38. What is an angel? 39. What are angels used for? 40. What is our prophet to us? 42. What is the everlasting gospel? 42. What's the covenant of the great God Allah? 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach? 44. Where did he teach? 45. How long did he teach? 46. What did Jesus say that would make you free? 47. What is truth? 48. What is all? 49. Can truth change? 50. What other name do we give truth? 51. What have you to say about holy bread? 52. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed? 53. Where's the Garden of Eden? 54. What is the modern name given to the Garden of Eden? 55. What is the name of the first physical man? 56. What are the words AC of the MST of A? 57. Who are Adam and Eve? 58. Where do they go? 60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away? 60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away? 61. What's the modern name for those angels? 63 or 62. What is the shade of their skin? 63. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
Yes. You don't have the same father and mother.
65. What is the devil sometimes called?
Satan, beast, devil.
60.
Satan, devil, beast, back to the beast.
Sorry, pardon self. 64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Dragon and beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called? 66. How many selves are there? 67. Name them. 68. What people represent the higher self? 69. What people represent the lower self? 70. What is the higher self? Question is 70. What is the highest self? The highest self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life that breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. How can the highest self breed anything? Or how can the highest self breed anything that's an attribute to a person? Or what is the bolt, or what is the cord that ties that number 70 together? Meaning, what is the highest self? Is the mother of virtues and harmonies of life that breeds. So what I'm getting at is that how a mother breeds or how a mother gives birth is the same science of what is the highest self. This is a mother, right? It's a mother of something that breeds love, justice, mercy, love, and right. So it's like, even like from a non-physical perspective, even words have mothers, like a matrix. That would be like the mothership or the foundation of a word, right? Or we have different parts of speech. It's all the same thing. So everything has a mother or origin or how it breeds or how it became to be. Islam? 71. Can the highest self pass away? 72. Why? 73. What does the lower self breed? 74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him? 75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self? 76. Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
77. When was time declared out? 78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did we have reference to? 80. Did Jesus say he would return to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the person into Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad to conquer.
82. Was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was to be bound apart.
83. When was the head of Satan taken off?
14 to be bound.
84. By whom?
By Muhammad.
85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian.
86. Negro.
Negro is a name given to the river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Black, according to science, means that.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Color means everything that is painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something that's divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
91. Why?
Because man is made in the image and after the likeness of the God of God.
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity. Purity means God. God means ruler of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and the likeness of Allah?
No. He is a shadow of our lower selves and will pass away.
96. Who made Elohim?
The devil.
97. Who is Elohim? I'm sorry.
Elohim is
The Son of created spirit that created everything that ever was, is, and evermore to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
the 7 eyes of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7
7
days.
days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam.
I hear who made the devil,
Yeah, Elohim.
and then the answer was
Well,
Elohim.
who made the who made
Who?
Elohim?
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah, he said.
No,
Yeah.
that was said from the floor.
Oh, who is Elohim? And I said, who made Elohim?
No, he said
No,
who created the devil.
You said,
Oh.
and then somebody from the floor
Oh,
said, Elohim.
Oh,
Islam.
devil. I said the devil.
Oh, you said that.
Oh, that was you saying.
Yes, because that's so right. Yeah.
Islam.
Yeah,
Islam. Bring up Sheikh Shatik next. Islam.
Islam boys, I do, pardon, so I'm a little excited and a little mentally discombobulated, so please excuse me. Like I was saying earlier, what brought me to this movement was I was always like in search of knowledge, and I was in search of like who we are. You know what I'm saying, and like as a people, I always knew like in my gut we had to be more than what history says. So I met some people who I came up with to introduce me to an introduction to this. You know, because I had come from the Christian church. I started out I was in 5% Nation, and I wound up in the Christian church for like a few years. Once I learned about this, I fell in love because it reunited me with all the things I've always felt like in my gut about who we are, like as a people. So, like in short, this is the best move I could have ever made, because to actually know like who I am, you know, through the prophets, divine and through the prophets' divine and holy teachings. Now I can really say that I am truly grounded. And with that, I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I would get into a lesson plan, but I'm not. I'm just going to explain why I came into more science. Now I'm going to bring up brother like Omari.
Islam again, family. I want to give honors to Prophet Noble Ali once again. I want to give honors to him a third time, and what I'm grateful for, who Noble Ali who Noble Charlie is and what he represents. Also what he brought for us, the true saving power. I'm thankful and grateful that he taught me how to be at one with my creator, even what that even means. I'm grateful that he taught me how to strive to take my place amongst the affairs of men. I'm grateful for him even making me human again. So I could keep going. Those are my primary reasons why I'm grateful for coming into the movement. Also, him preparing the Quran, it just helped me to constantly improve my life. I'm just constantly grateful. Islam. Next, Brother Universe. Yes.
Rise. I'm going to rise and give praises to Allah, give honors to Noble Jali. I'm going to give honors to all the. I'm going to give honors to the Grand Sheikh and Grand Sheikhs and all members of the temple. Islam. I definitely want to give honors to Noble Jali because he gave us, per se myself, answers. You know, there's a lot of times in life that I was dealing with certain situations in life, and you know, a lot of people didn't have answers. You know, I came from a background of Nation of Islam. I was born into the Nation of Islam, and you know, as you get older, a lot of segments go differently. The way I came into the way I became a member of the Moorish Science Board of America was from two segments, was from two angles. I used to work for a cab station in Mount Vernon, and the dispatcher was showing me a video about Taj. And what attracted me to the video was it was the Circle 7 that it was being displayed, and that really coordinated me with the lesson. But I had he gave me a route to go on, and the route was in Brooklyn, and it was a high price for that. So I'm like, nah, I just want to keep looking at the video, and at the same time, one of my brothers was telling me about this Quran that had information in it. So it was coming in two ways. That it was so when I got in touch with my brother and we was building on the Quran, it really came to light like this was the same person that my dispatcher was speaking about in at my job. So it just came at once, and I just knew that it was infinite to study what was being prepared for me and to understand that the information and the answers that was present towards me was illustrious to do study something that always had correction to it. It was no blockage. A lot of things we study in these schools and in these colleges and universities, sometimes it's a blocking stepping stone. Dealing with Noble Jali was really never no blockage. It was always answers to, you know, my search of knowledge and perfection. Islam.
First I rise, giving perfect praise to Father God Allah, honors to the Prophet, Noble Jali, honors to the Sheikh and the Sheikhs of the temple, honors to all members in attendance, and honors to everything that pertains to Allah. Islam. So how I got into Moorish science was I taught my son all of his colors, his numbers. I was teaching him words, everything, all of the stuff I was teaching him before he was like 12 months rather, sign language, all of that. So he was probably going on 2 or could have been like 2 years old. And he'd like to test everybody in the house. So my daughter and I were in the house, and he was like, what color is that? And so we're like, it's white. And he's like, okay, right. And what color? And he's just going on and on. Then he gets to the printer and he says, what color is that? So my daughter says, black like you. And he says, I'm not black. And she's like, yes, you are. And he's like, no, I'm not. I mean, and they're going back and forth. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, wait a minute. Because I remember telling my daughter that she was black and her telling me kind of the same thing. And I was like, no, you're black, you know? But when they're going back and forth and I'm watching this whole thing go down. And I said, wait a minute. I said, he's right. I was like, he's right. We're not black. So I got on a computer on this new invention called Google. And I typed in, are black people black? And all of these videos came up, Taj Tariq Bey, these Moorish science videos. And I started to, watch them. And then I found out that there was a class in Harlem. And so, like, the next week I was at the class, and I went to the class every week faithfully for a year and a half until it ended. And I learned a lot in that class. Raz Mariah Bey, as well as Abdullah Talib Mosley Bey were teaching, and Anaid El. And a lot of that was on the law aspect. And the class ended. But of course, everything in Moorish science just made sense to me. It made sense that we're not Black. How could I say that Black, which is an adjective, is something? I am a living being, moving. I'm a verb, but I'm describing myself as Black. And so it made sense that, our ancient fathers and foremothers didn't describe themselves like that. They didn't. Everybody was attached to a landmass and a nationality. And in fact, I talked to my grandmother, who is 93, 94 now. And she told me a couple of years ago that we were very upset. Our people never subscribed to being called Black in the very beginning. And if you called somebody Black, they would be ready to fight you. Like, you couldn't call somebody Black. But then, James Brown came out with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And then everybody just, jumped on the bandwagon. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. But we had no idea that our nationality and birthright was being stolen from us by agreeing to be dead. So that's how I came into Moorish science. And then I brought my husband in as well. And so I was saying the class ended. And so I would go online, but it wasn't the same. And so then the Sister Delia was like, well, there's a temple in Asbury. She was like, that's the temple that they all go to. So then she brought me here. And so then I learned about the divine aspect. And so it's a divine and national movement. And I've really just lately started to get into the Circle 7. And it's opened up a whole nother aspect. It just helps to keep me in line. It helps me to want to do the right thing and to be right. Even when I'm feeling emotional, I get into my Circle 7, and it calms me down because as the Grand Sheikh said last week when he was reading from the Circle 7, is that what Allah wants? Because then that's what I want. And so the Circle 7 is kind of it's keeping me even kill. Law governs all events, so everything that happens is supposed to be happening, but how should I be responding to it? And the Circle 7 helps me to respond properly in the way that I think that Father God Allah would want me to respond. So that's how I came into more science, Islam.
Yes, I really enjoyed you speaking, Sister Jamila. That was a touching cause that had you come along. Okay, at this time we bring up Sister Monique.
Islam. Okay, Islam. Islam. Okay. First I rise. I give praise to the great God Allah. I give honors to the Prophet Noble Ali. I give honors to Grand Sheikh and Sheikhs, and I give honors to all Moors around the world. Islam. All right. First things first, I would like to say that the movement has changed me completely. When I first started, I used to wear tight clothes. I didn't know myself. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. So I've learned that you have to love yourself before you love others. So I wasn't in tune with children, nor nature, or animals. So once I learned to love myself, I learned to love animals, and I learned to love children. So now I'm an instructor, and I'm a queen, I'm a wife. and I'm a creative queen, I can honestly say. So I love myself. And the fact that I love myself, I'm able to love others for them to love themselves. So Noble Drew has taught me so much of covering up, that you don't have to wear tight clothes. You don't have to show your body. You just have to just love yourself enough to know that it's more than that, than anything. So that's what the prophet has taught me, and has taught me to be a beautiful queen and wife, a mother as well, of all mothers. Um, and that's what I honestly can say. And I could thank my Grand Sheik and Sheikess for helping me get to the next step, into the next journey. And I can't predict our future. We can't, but I'm ready for the next journey. I'm a Leo, I'm a fighter, so that's what I'm here for. And I will always give honors to my ancestors and those that have come before me. And that's basically it. Islam.
Islam.
All right. That felt good.
Islam it is a beautiful thing that the Prophet brings out all of the best that's in us. You know, it's a beautiful thing to stand on the Prophet and on the Prophet's teachings. And at this time, I'll bring up Sister Farasha.
Islam. I give praises to Allah, honors to Noble Drew, the Grand Sheik and Sheikess, everyone here today,
Islam,
everyone who
honor
could
to
not
you.
make it. Question
Was, what brings you to the West Side?
being the daughter of the Grand Sheik and Sheikess has majorly impacted my life. Most people go crazy for years trying to figure out who they are, and I was born into a household where we were always taught. Growing up, learning Islam was it was the best choice for me. We also grew up vegetarian. Now I'm at the age where I can go out and go other ways, meat, and I still don't work, so I still like being vegetarian. I was taught right from wrong. It's not saying that other things are wrong, but I like who I was raised to be, and I like to continue going this way. Islam.
Islam.
Okay, that was brief and to the point. Like I said, this is a great movement, a great and divine movement, and it really pains me when people use it to step outside of what its real purpose is. It's to teach us to be better citizens. It teach us to stand on our own 2 feet. It teaches us how to navigate this plane by being a true lawman, true law people. This is a national and divine movement. With that being said, at this time, I'm going to bring up Sheikess Nika, the Sheikess of the temple. Bring her up this time.
Islam, I rise and give praises to Allah, the great God of the universe. I give honors to His noble divine prophet, Noble Drew. Give honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America, most divine national movement of the world. Give honors to our Grand Sheik here at this location, Grand Sheik Lord Noble Nature Obey. I give honors to all the sheiks, past sheiks, sheikesses of this temple, of all temples worldwide. Give honors to all temples worldwide. Give honors where honors due. Give honors to our posterity, to our children, and give honors to those things that's seen and unseen. The prophet said that he is fighting this fight, and he can best fight this fight on his soul plane. He's solving problems there, as we are solving problems here. And give honors to Islam. I came into a movement about in the early year of 2000. I transitioned from a movement and started
here at Great Seal, that was my first introduction to what being of more science was taught. Um, and through that, I was able to understand the foundation of what all this was meant. All this was pointing towards the More Science Temple, Noble Drew Ali. And it all made sense to me at that point. And I give honor to all the schools of thought that I sat in and that I learned. You know, Jesus said that he would sit with all the masters. He would, study, and he would do all these things just to gain understanding and perfection of who he is. And I give honors to all the schools of thought that have groomed me and raised me. And this is, I can say that this is the pinnacle of schools on a physical plane, because it teaches man about himself. Prophet came with the More Science Temple America with the instructions of who we are. Man, know thyself. And there was one of the key principles that we weren't taught, that I wasn't taught in all those other movements. It was this one principle of nationality and birthright. It was one thing that I was missing and that was needed for a complete overall evaluation of my path here and journey on this plane, in this realm, at this time of my reincarnation. And nationality was the key to everything. And once I started to get acquainted with Noble Drew Ali and the Holy Quran and the 101s, and I started to read and understand a little bit more, and it made everything make sense. Everything pulled together from a foundational perspective, and all of it was necessary, and all of it is the same. These lessons and degrees he's truly a universal prophet. Any nation of any person of whatever religious or national background could understand the principles that the prophet laid down. And this is what makes this movement, this is what gives this movement such a great advantage, is because the principles that he used as the foundation of what this movement is dedicated to are universal principles that any nation, any people that speak any language will understand, that this movement was based upon divine principles. And the instruction to his people were that to teach them to be better citizens, to be righteous and spiritual beings. And then give honors again to the Holy Quran, because that book, as simple as some may say it is, holds the very keys of getting people in alignment with themselves and with the nations of the earth. And if everyone followed the true principles, regardless of what their nationality or creed is, it should still lead us all into equality and peace. And this is what we're seeking for. And so again, giving honors to Noble Drew Ali, this has been a job. It's been a mighty work, not just learning nationality and birthright and dealing with the build destroy degree. I really had to, while you're building yourself up, you're destroying certain things as well. And these are those beliefs that we've held on to for all these years that have groomed us. And for man to be perfected and for man to learn their higher self and lower self, this is a relationship that happens where you're always building and destroying. You're building on, you're destroying beliefs, old beliefs that haven't done us any good. And you're building onto truths that we were kept from, that we didn't truly understand. And that's a constant cycle that we all go through. Especially in any divine movement, you're learning to destroy your lower self and build your higher self. And that's really what this movement was dedicated to. And if every person did that, then this was true. We would be representing, because the movement is divine, regardless of the people's actions, the movement is divine. And this is why the prophet said, you can't tear it up, it'll tear you up. So the people are the representations and represent the movement. And if the people have to learn to be in harmony with the movement itself. And this is why we have to learn to love instead of hate. And we have to learn to become our higher selves, because that'll bring us in tune with what the movement was dedicated to. And this we will continue this movement on a pure and divine path. And this is what is needed. And so this is a mighty work. And it's a mighty work to continually strive towards perfection. It's a lot of work. And then to teach others to do the same is a lot of work. It's a job. It's a job that you don't get paid for monetarily. It's a different kind of payment that you get paid. And you don't see it sometimes right away. You know, some people, need to see the money right in front of them. They need to see the benefit right away in order to be motivated to do something. Some people have to see the benefit right away to say, okay, this is worth it. But this movement is not based off that. This and anything divine, and any blessings or gifts that you want the universe to give you, those things aren't something that you see right away. It's something that you build towards, like generational wealth. You don't see that right away. That's something that you build upon to see it, and because you know the value of it, then that's the motivation. The only motivation you need is because you see the benefit. And the problem is most people don't see the benefit of digging deep within themselves to find the treasures that were lost, because they don't understand the values of those treasures. They don't understand the value of nationality and birthright. So they come into this movement, and because they don't see the value right away, then it's not something that's esteemed or strived for with zeal. Like it says, set their hearts on fire with love and holy zeal. And you have to see the value in things or appreciate the value in things, because a lot of times you do see them. It's just that you're not ready for it. You don't appreciate it at the moment until you become mature and wise, and then you say, oh wow, those were jewels for me. And we all of our children, we say, okay, you don't understand now, but wait till you get older, you'll see the jewel, and we always say, if I knew then what I know now, I'll be more powerful. And this is what we try to instill in people come into the movement. We're trying to say, listen, this is a jewel. Please see it now. Don't tarry and struggle for naught because you don't understand it. And this is why it's so important to listen to the message and not so much the message, because if you can deal with reason and understand, okay, this is something that ultimately, even though I don't understand and see that benefit right now, you have to deal with truth and say, okay, but it is there. It is there. But you have to show the people who don't have eyes to see and ears to hear. You have to be sort of a magician to kind of show them the way. Bring that value and jewel in front of them. And sometimes you have to dangle some things in front of them just to get them to like clamp on to a piece of the truth that they don't understand. It's like children. So we're trying to get people, and even ourselves, there's a lot of sciences and a lot of principles that we still have not yet evolved into. We're working towards it. And there's things that we still don't value as a people, even still being in the movement. There's things that we don't value right away. And this is the stagnation that we experience at home, personally, on our jobs, and what have you. We are stagnated because we're not exercising the value of certain things and principles. And I think that, this is why the prophet said, keep the doors open, because sooner or later, as you plant the seed, a person will at some point say, okay, and the jewel will be there for them when they're ready for it. Because not everyone is ready at the same time. Not everyone is designed to see it right away. We all have our personal karmic debts, our issues, 12th house stuff that we bring into, all kind of things. And we all have different disadvantages on why our life is not the way it should be and why we experience certain foes. All of ours is different. And this is why it's important not to judge a person and their foes. You just have to stick to the law. You stick to the law, and if the law is stern, then it leaves no person no choice but to walk the straight and narrow. And that's what the laws is for. The laws is for those who don't see the value and don't have the esteem and don't have the willpower to just go in line with truth and deal with reason. So the law is there to keep people in the straight and narrow until they realize and understand and want the truth for themselves, and then it's no longer needed. Oaths become unnecessary because the person has become that. And they don't have to be told to walk the straight and narrow. They become the straight and narrow because they were forced to. And this is what this movement was for. And this is why we have to keep the doors open, because if we follow the laws, eventually a person who did not see the value will be forced to see the value, and they will appreciate the jewels, and then they accept it and walk without having to be told. They'll walk in faith. Islam. So giving honor again to this movement, because it's done that for me. And I'm still on the path of discovering who I am. And I'm still dealing with my foes and my struggles. And I give Islam and thanks for people who are around me that support and love me. And because you can't do this alone. And most of us don't have family members that were in this movement to give us support. You know, we don't have that. So we have to lean on each other for the love and support to get us through the hurdles, to get us through the emotions, to get us through all these struggles of oppositions that we have within this movement. But if we don't all walk in a straight and narrow in the law, then it's like we don't have the support with each other either. So that's why it becomes so important for us to stay straight on the path, learn and develop yourself and who you are, so that you can give others the best that's in you, and that we can only look for the best that's in others. And this is the only thing that we're looking to do. And you can't give a person the best of you if you don't dive deep within yourself and pull out the best that's in you, because no one can do that. And you have to find a way to shake off the shackles of our own false beliefs, of our own bad habits, because it's like bad habits are why we keep doing the things that's insanity. We keep doing the things that have done us no good and always harmed us. And we know it's not good for us, but we do it because it's habit. And once you form a habit, it's hard to break unless you form a habit to break the bad habit. So it's work. It's work. And this movement is work. Any form of spirituality is work. And it's okay to make mistakes along the way. And it's okay to not know, but to strive towards it. It's okay, because the goal of man is the complete unfoldment and to be at peace with everything, but peace with self. Islam.
Islam. Wow, you could have stayed up there. Islam is the religion of peace. And, she could say a few things that was very pertinent about eyes to see and ears to hear. The hidden jewels. We're always looking for what we can see, as opposed to the tangible things that's over here spiritually that we can't see, that we should be striving for. Like I said, Islam is a very simple faith. It requires man to recognize his duties towards God Allah, his creator, and his fellow creatures. We all are bound to cause each other, and other living things. So in not thought, word, or deed should we say anything to harm each other or harm anyone or anything. And that's what's been missing with this movement, with a lot of our Moorish brothers and sisters. We get this knowledge and we become overnight scholars for ourselves, and forget the purpose of what this is about. United we stand, divided we fall. We can't stand in the house that like everybody, we say we are Moors, but you're talking this way, I'm speaking this way, she's speaking that way, he's speaking that. There's only one divine and national movement, and that was ordained and brought to us by who? The Prophet, Noble U.S.A, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Because if I may quote something from the Prophet, he said that the cardinal doctrine of Islam is the unity of the Father Allah. And we believe in one God. Allah, who is all God, all mercy, all power. He is perfect and holy, all wisdom, all knowledge, and all truth. These are some of his great attributes so far as we can understand. So therefore, we should strive to find those same attributes and those same things within each other. Because the gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and he has appointed to everyone his or her portion in what measure seemeth good unto himself. With that, I will step aside and I'll call up on the Grand Sheik at this time, if he's prepared to come up. At this time, Grand Sheik Lord Nature El Bey will be the next voice that you'll hear. Peace and Islam.
Islam was. Islam. Just want to rise first and foremost, always giving all praises due to the Almighty God Allah, Supreme Being, the one and only, author, the creator of this and all universes. Islam. Giving honors to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, our professor, our educator, our enlightener, Islam, our prophet, our father. Giving honors to him on his solar return weekend, the solstice, which is in alignment with the prophet's solar return. The sun is returning and the prophet is returning. Islam. And the prophet is a son of Allah, and he's the most noblest image of Allah. Islam. But to him we give honors where honors is due. Islam. Giving honors to all of you as well for recognizing that the prophet is the man. Recognizing that your condition could be better, and that's why you're here. Islam, because that's the first step, is recognizing our condition can be better. That's the reason why we should proclaim our nationality. That's the reason why we should start studying ourselves. That's why we should gain knowledge of self. That's why we should join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become a part of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. Why? Because we think our condition could be better. Islam. So I want to give honors to those who already passed that stage in their life, to knowing that they're not perfect and there's still much wisdom to be learned among the Asiatics. Islam. Islam. And I was just sitting here listening to all of the testimonials, if you will, of what the prophet did for them, how the prophet inspired them. And it's interesting because we all come from different paths, different walks of life, different schools, different households, different communities, different states. You know, so everybody brings with them a portion of experience. And like the Quran tells us that some of us solve much harder than others, and vice versa. So when we unite and come together, what we do is share our experiences, and we learn from our experiences and from everyone else's experiences. And that's, I believe, what Sheikh Nika was talking about, how we need each other for support, because you might have solved something that I didn't solve yet. So I might have to lean on you for that degree. Islam. The Quran and the package of the Moorish Science Temple does cover the different sufferings and trials and tribulations that we might go through, but we're not going to receive those lessons until we're ready, like it was said earlier. So until we can understand the lesson and we can exercise the lesson to help self, we might have to speak and depend on our brother and sister for those type of instructions or the assistance to get through that part. Because the lesson tells us that when we can't see ourselves, others will discover us more plainly. So sometimes you don't even know what your lesson should be, or you don't even know what your issue is. So this is where the brother or sister are gonna have to tell you, because you can read if you were studious enough, or we were far enough advanced, we knew self, then we can recognize our own imperfection. But because we're not at that level, then Allah speaks to man through man. So our job is to reach out to one another and say, hey, look, I can read the hard, long lines of toil on your face. What's going on? What seems to be bothering you? Like Brother Jesus did when he was at the spring. Your people look sad. Looks like you have no happiness. What's going on? So again, that's the job of a doctor. So that's what people go to the doctor for, right? They feel some type of way. They suffering. They not feeling good or whatever. They go to get checked out. I'm going for a checkup. You hear people say, I'm going to the doctor to find this out, find that out. Understand? So that what the job is, he's discovering he see you more than you do. So that's his job or her job. But again, that we got to become doctors at some point so that we can heal ourselves. Islam. So I just want to give my portion a quick brief. I started studying more science in 1995. And I was running the streets at that time. We had a bookstore in town, a health food store called Winds of Life. And Sister Malkia and Brother Malik at that time ran the store. They were the owners and operators of the store. And it was a health food store, but you would get videotapes and stuff and sell them on the side. And this was back when there was no YouTube, there was no internet like that. So all of the information and the lessons was on VHS tape. So the brother used to kick to us some information in the store, just building, because it was consciousness. Health stores usually deal with just consciousness, period. People that's in the health, people that's in the diet, they're usually in a circle of information. So the health food store at that time, they used to have on the low, they had Bobby Hemmett that came to the store a couple of times to do a lecture. So this is like old school teachers and our leaders back in the day. Bobby Hemmett was one of them. Phil Valentine was another. So they came and did a couple of lectures or whatever, just to spark the interest of the owners at the store at that time. I wasn't at the lecture, but I would hear about it. But then I would get the VCR tape, So then Brother Sesha was another brother that I came up with during that time. He would get the tapes. We would go over his house and we would watch these tapes. So it became like an addiction. That we would get these tapes and then we would just rush home and watch them. And back then, we had the knowledge of the gods and earths. We had the 120 lessons and those that we used to study as well. But this was something different. Like I grew up on 5% lessons, so it was just like, that was the normal. But now when we came and seen these lectures and we seen, it's like I'm looking at gods on the tape, and I'm like, yo, these brothers is different from what we used to. And then we had a term for the gods and earths when they were really, for those who were really practicing the science the way it was supposed to be practiced, we used to refer to them as the true and livings. So we were already inspired by true and living gods, but now when we seen these Moors, I'm saying to myself, like, yeah, these are the real true and living gods right here. Like they demonstrate something different. It's just different, vast information, and they talking about health, they talking about diet, they just dropping all kinds of degrees that is not even in the lessons. It's like way beyond that. So now that opened up the eyes that it's something more than what we've been given. So just to speed that up, so that's where we started studying more science at. Was by watching tapes. There was no more science temples. There was no classes in this area. The closest temple was in Newark, New Jersey, which was the old Canaanite, no, not the old Canaanite temple for itself, more Holy Temple of Science. And there were elders in those temples at that time. I think it was 2 of them around that time, and they were like private. So it was hard to get into them, especially when people came with, with an open mind. They definitely was like real standoffish to people coming in. So it wasn't like somewhere you can go and just take a seat and listen to what they got to say. You knock on the door, they screen you and tell you, they get your phone number, tell them they hit you up later or something like that. So they really discouraged us from even going there. So it just wasn't an option. So we didn't really have too much of an option on where to go. So we just kept watching tapes. Then we started going up to New York. In Harlem, it was a brother named Brother Big Man. And Brother Big Man was an elder brother who used to go around and set up lectures at different venues like bookstores and the Harlem Community Center at that time. Forgot the bookstore, Jack's Bookstore on 138th Street, one of those. But he would go set up the lectures, and he would film the lectures with the old school camcorders, the big joints. So he used to film the lectures of Valentine and Bobby Hemmett, Brother Azazel, Hakeem Bey at the time, some of the early pioneers. And he used to make the tapes and sell them on the street. So we started going up to 125th Street and buying the tapes directly from Brother Big Man. So that's how we started the collections. Still today, I have a closet, probably at least 1,000 VHS tapes that we still have, collectible items. And then that pretty much started, I didn't proclaim at that time. It's like I said, there wasn't a structure and a platform really for it. It was like a word of mouth type of situation through Great Seal National Association. Moorish Affairs was really the only platform that Moors can come into with a free mind and actually get lessons. Brother Rami Bey was in Queens at that time, leading the Great Seal. Brother Taj was in Jersey and back and forth from Jersey to Philly, dropping jewels and putting out the civic lessons and things. So this is information that we got to spark this up. So I was still running the streets because I was young around that time. So I wasn't really ready to conform totally to it, but I used to tell people and teach people like we not black, we Moors and this and that. So I was kicking that like I said back in '95, but I just wasn't living the life at that time, So had to go through my bumps and bruises and run-ins with the law and suffering and things of that nature. And then my mom's took sick around '98. She got diagnosed with cancer, and she had a very fast but long battle dealing with lung cancer. So around that time, I had to put my street life on hold to try to heal her because they only gave her 2 years to live. So because I had the knowledge, a little bit of knowledge about more science, what I did was it made me go deeper into more science, but the path I was on was more of a health path, where I started to hook up with Dr. Sabi and Leela Africa and started dealing with them because I was trying to get some type of remedies to try to help my mother. And by dealing with that and dealing with them, that's when I became vegan as well. So I became vegan probably around 99, 2000. And it was on the path of trying to help her, but understanding the whole health and the FDA, Food and Drug Administration part of the government, and the whole pharmaceutical industry and the doctors and all that. So I started studying that real hard because I was, again, trying to heal her, but realizing that we've been bamboozled and we've been enslaved on a health side of things. I really wasn't into the law aspect at that time. I was aware of it, but my interest was more the health. So I started to challenge the pharmaceutical industry, started to come at the doctors. You know, every time that they have a family meeting and tell the family what the next step for my mother was, I would go counter that. You know, I'll go research on that, go speak to the Moors that I was communication with, and getting packages from Sabi and, you know, and things like that. So I started to see the fraud within the medical industry, and I started to come at them real heavy, to the point where I had a falling out with my family because of that, because I was actually challenging them because they were supporting what the doctors were saying. So I was like, I went through a real crazy time period, and disassociated myself from real close family members because of that. You know, especially when my mother finally passed. You know, peace and blessings be upon her. But when she passed, I really came at them because you know, a part of me held them responsible for the course of action that led up to that. You know, so, you know, again, just being ignorant to the whole portion of more science made me rebellious. I got kicked out the hospital. They wouldn't let me in there. I used to go into the hospital with my books in my hand, my dictionary, you know, and waiting for the doctor to come in the room, sitting right by my mother's bedside. They come in there, I just start giving it to them. So my family would get on me about that, talking about I'm causing a problem and this and that. And I'm making the doctor show and prove. Like, listen, you can't heal cancer by cutting a patient. It's mathematically impossible. I mean, that's how I'm coming at them. But I'm proving to them, or challenging them, I should say, where they didn't want to really respond to it. So they start telling my family that they're not coming in the room if I'm in there. It got to that point. But that was my way of, you know, of defending and protecting the cause and my mother. And once she passed, I felt like everybody was against me. You know, so I felt like I was on a mission by myself. So Islam. So that just got me into, you know, I still would have been in the movement if it wasn't for that, but that was my entry on how I came in. So I came in as a rebel, and again, because I was young, and when you don't really understand how to digest what we call death, you know, if you're still immature to that, sometimes you might deal with it a little bit differently. And that's how I was dealing with. I was on the right path, and I praise Allah for, you know, the path that I was on. But at the same time, it was the way I dealt with what they call the mourning of the situation is I dealt with it through the science and studying. So it made me study harder. It made me go very deep at it. And I became very, had a lot of animosity towards the whole system after that, which got me into the law aspect, and went from the doctors to start dealing with the judges and everybody else. And luckily, I mean, I came in the Great Seal National Association at that time. And then I later was led into the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's lessons. And that was a beauty because it grounded me. You know, it balanced me, you know, because those that was around back then know that even during the course of dealing with the law aspect, you know, we was going back and forth from New York to Chicago, I mean, not Chicago, parts of Charlotte, North Carolina, because those was where the active Moors was. You know, and that's where I actually met Sheikh Nika, you know, traveling back and forth, and we was navigating with our own tags at that time. just making up stuff. They called us the renegade Moors. You know, but again, we were young. You know, and I praise Allah because I had I grew up around elders, my fathers, my uncles, my older cousins, and you know, I was just raised by elders. I was always in elders' face, you know. But because of that, I've seen a lot and did a lot at a very young age. You know, because of that, I experienced a lot of things at a fast age that made me mature quick to the point where I was really done with that fast life, you know, in my early 20s or mid 20s or whatever it was. So I already had did most of what most people that was 30 and 40 haven't really accomplished at that point. So I kind of like was done with that, and I was able to, you know, go straight ahead in the movement without looking back. A lot of Moors I see today, they come in and they got 1 foot here, 1 foot there. They straddling the fence because they haven't explored their youth yet. You know, so they still want to go out to clubs, party, do this and that, and they haven't experienced, so it's still a part of the curiosity in them where they still want to do certain things. And it's harder when you come in this at an older age and try to take this information and still try to run the street and live out of youth. I've seen people who didn't really be successful in doing that because of the stage on how they came at it. So, and I understand why the Prophet told us that we had to send our children to Sunday school and make them become a part, make them become industrious and things of that nature, because when we get this at a young age, it curbs all of the unwanted opposition that we might get into, running the streets with this person and that person, getting a record. Because once you get a jail record, it's kind of very hard to reverse that. You know, so there's a lot of things that would keep us from getting in trouble if we just got this information at a young age. You know, so that's why we hold very fast to these principles of trying to get the youth involved and keep them involved. Because not that we're trying to be dictators, but we're trying to protect them. You know, and that's the most important thing. The Prophet protected us, and we have an obligation to protect the youth, our children. You know, because it's hard. It's people today that I get calls from Moors all the time asking, how can I clear up my record? How can I expunge my record? How can I do this and that? I had a Moor recently, an elder Moor, very loyal, you know, tried to do something. I think get a passport to try to cross the border or something. And they brought up a charge from like 15, 20 years ago. You know, and he was just like, man, I got to get that off my record, man. That's, you know, it has nothing to do with now, but they, you know, they still follow you with that stuff. And it's hard. Like, we don't look at those things when we're young. We just do things and we don't think twice about the consequence. We don't think about later. We don't think about 20, 30 years later how that's going to hurt us, you know. But that's what the parents is for. That's what the old elders is for, to try to curb that. We can't control it 100%. But like the Prophet said, watch the bent of their inclinations and let no bad habits gain their youth. You know, and that's the lesson because of that. You know, if you can put brakes on it, it could be a whole lot better than if you wasn't in the picture. You know, and it's proven that most of our young brothers get incarcerated, and majority of them is because they didn't really have a father figure in the house, or a father figure that was actually doing his job as a father. That's most of the time. Not all the time, but most of them. And because of that, the streets raise them, especially in gang territories. You know, that's what the gangs leaders actually capitalize off of. They seek out youth who don't really have parents, or their parents are strung out on drugs, and they don't really monitor the children, don't really care about their curfew and who they're hanging out with. They just let them run the streets. So the gang leaders or whoever they are, even people who try to, even if it's just for selling drug purposes, they look at the youth that has a vulnerable household and they take them. It could be a poor family. Say, well, look, your family living poor. Y'all can't afford this. Y'all can't do this. You hungry? You out here running the streets? Let me take you under my wing. And that's usually how that starts. So again, the prophet actually put brakes on that too. He told us that we have, without finances, then we can't do anything. Not for ourselves, not for our children. So that's the outcome of the lack of finances. So the economic security has so many different benefits to it that we may not look at, but it's the whole key to everything. A brother might just say, I want to afford this. I want to get a Tesla. I want to do whatever. And in a young person's mind, the only way they think that they can get that, it may be by doing crime, selling drugs, or being a rapper, or being a basketball player. So those are they look at, and that's what they work towards. And if they can't get the scholarship, then they resort to the street. So again, if we can change a lot of that, is if we had economic programs that will allow our finances in abundance, that they'll say, hey, look, do that. Hey, look, I don't really have to go to college. I'm doing all right now. If we create more of those opportunities, then we can minimize the amount of people that turn to the streets. Son? So because we are still celebrating our prophet's Earth Day, I want to give a couple of his quotes. I want to go into the oral statements. Testimonials. Thank you. So the oral statements are testimonials given by people who walk with the prophet, members of the early Moorish Science Temple of America, that either took notes, bear witness him in the temple making statements, or sidebar conversations that he said to them personally. But all of that's part of our lessons. We can use all of that for study purposes to gain a better understanding of what we should be doing. And really, those are the best way of learning, really. We don't have that opportunity like they did, where we could just imagine if you was able to just sit with the prophet every now and then. Or, you went somewhere with the prophet, you was on a 3-hour ride with the prophet, and you in the back seat with him, and he building with you. He's now, he's really holding down the lessons personally, untampered with. You're not dealing with writings and what some people said he said, or oral statements, and those are different type of lessons, because it's just like we always say too, when we have small sessions in the temple, or sidebar meetings, be the best meetings. Sometimes when you speaking to a group of people, you're trying to stay within a certain guideline. And it's a little bit different when you're dealing with a sidebar conversation. So we can tap into those sidebar conversations, and that's what he was teaching us to do. You just got to have ears to hear. You got to really raise your vibration, your vibratory rate, where you can be able to be taught from the prophet directly. The prophet is still teaching us. He's still whispering in our ear, but everybody's not going to be able to hear it. You know, and that's just another lesson as man unfold, his God unfold. So we will eventually get to that point if we stay on the right path. But until then, we have instructions, we have the lessons, we have the oral statements, we have his newspapers. Anything that he left behind is the prophet talking to you. So you might read something where he was talking to somebody else. But as an adept, you got to know he was talking to you too.
Absolutely.
So even though you read in somebody else's conversation, you take that personally and say that lesson is for me as well. And that's how you study.
Absolutely.
That's the purpose he gave us the Quran in the Moor Science Temple. You know, and told us to go back to the Bible and study that too, because you can't look at that from a third party conversation. If you take yourself out of the equation, you always miss the lesson. It will never help you. Same thing with these lessons. It will never help you. You got to be part and parcel with the conversation. So, yeah, so as the prophet talked to you directly and said, you know, Brother Martin, let me holler at you for a minute. Imagine that the prophet came to you like that, you know, and gave you a good one-on-one for an hour. You know, imagine the type of inspiration you'll get from something like that. So you got to understand, and we got to give honor to the Moors that had those conversations. You know, because those with jewels is historical. Even though those Moors, most of them are not here anymore. But they passed down that lesson to somebody else. Whether they was their son, their daughter, their nephew, their grandson, whoever it was, they told somebody the secret. That, listen, Prophet Noble Ali told me this. Even though these Moors might not even be in the movement, might not even be following the movement, but there's people walking around that know stuff about this movement. It's just not public. So it's again, we got to make public these lessons. We got to declare ourselves and be out there, because you never know when you spark somebody's interest that might already know a little something. Might just not been inspired by whoever they was dealing with for years. But you might say something to them to make them view this whole thing different, make them view themselves totally different. You know, so again, the prophet said everybody's been told, and I always looked at that statement like, well, it's not that people don't know this information, because he said everybody's been told. There's got to be some science behind that statement. But this has been in the ethers for a very long time. And this information is in everybody's DNA, regardless if they're conscious of it or not. That's the science behind it. And the only thing we're doing is sparking them. When we teach them or teach them about the truth about the nationality and birthright, it's already in them. You have to bring it up out of them. And that's the charge and the foe for us, to view it that way. It's no different from an investigator, detective. When he know that he got a suspect, and he know the suspect knows something, but the suspect is not talking. So he take him in an interrogation room, and his job is to try to get it out, that individual. So they got all types of strategies, tactics that they put you in a room, put you in solid meditation for a minute, you know, whatever it is. And his job is to try to get into your mind and get you to talk. And this is how we kind of got to be with this. Where, like the prophet said, if you can't convince your brother that he's not Negro, black, and colored, there's nothing else to say to him. But it don't mean give up that easy just because you gave him a lesson for 20 minutes and he ain't getting it. So you say, well, I ain't dealing with you no more. Maybe you just didn't do enough. Just like the investigator. He might get frustrated. He might have him in there for hours and can't break him. That he might have to go back and cool off himself.
That's right.
Go get something to drink. Go calm down. Think a little bit. Then he'll come back at the room. Go look over his notes. Come back in there again. Say, how can I come at him differently this time? Do we take that approach when we building with people? Like, do we really try to get in people's head like that? Because when we looking at things, it's like, oh, well, you don't want it, then that's on you. It's not just on them. If they don't get it, it's on us too. Because no man lives into himself. That means that people out here that's doing negativity, following the lower self, it affects us each and every day. We're still bound in part to all these people, all these spirits, I should say. So it still stagnates us individually when our brothers and sisters is not on the right path. Our co-workers, we got to work with them. Everything we do, we got to partner with people that's not on the level. So look how much times that you with co-workers and you frustrated. And you say, oh man, I wish these people will proclaim more. Look at your neighbors. How many times you look at your neighbors and say, oh, why am I living around these people? I can't take it no more. You know, everything we do, we have to interact with society that don't think and follow what we follow. But that's not okay. Like, I don't want us, like, we're comfortable with it because we don't really look at no other option. So we accept those conditions. But what I'm saying is our job is to correct those conditions. So you have an obligation to try to save and enlighten as much people as you can. Regardless if they get it or not, that's our job as teachers. That's what we signed up for. That's the purpose of this. Yes, it's to make ourselves a better citizen, absolutely. And to uplift fallen humanity, absolutely. But we sacrifice the lower self, the lower realm. We give all of that up. We lose our will and Allah's will is the reason why we're here. So all of that stuff that we would have had liked to do before becomes a null and void dream if it's dealing with the lower realm. Now we got to fix ourselves in this mission is educating people. Look at what Noble Joe Ali did. He labored night and day. He sacrificed all worldly things to try to save us collectively as a nation. And he did that. But look at the sacrifice and the dedication that he put in to do that job. For us to be sitting here appreciating this lesson meant that somebody had to sacrifice to pave that way for us to be sitting here right now. I mean, these things are common sense, but again, I want us to value it a little bit more. The sacrifice is what I want us to look at. Like, we got to measure ourselves by this and say, let's not, like the Quran says, dress other men up in fancy garbs. We don't want to put other people out there to sacrifice and we just reap the benefits of what they're doing. Drew Ali and them, they sacrificed. I did a lecture yesterday dealing with the same topic of the sacrifice. In the early 1913 and early 20s, this information wasn't accepted. This wasn't normal. The teaching of Islam wasn't normal. For an Asiatic to declare himself free and independent was not tolerated, was not accepted by the masses of the people. To gather and to talk about Islam was not acceptable. To counter Christianity was not acceptable. So for them to get us to where it is acceptable now, that means that somebody had to sacrifice. Blood was shed.
That's right.
People lost their physical lives behind this. So we can't take this lightly as if this is a hobby or this is just something I like to do on the weekends. No, this is definitely not what our forefathers did. And that's not what they had in mind for us to do. Because we're still not at the point where everything is peaches and cream. The lion and the lamb has not lied down together yet. So that means that there's more blood that needs to be shed. That means there's going to be more scuffles.
That's right.
There's going to be more feathers getting red, if you understand what I mean.
Absolutely.
And doesn't mean I'm promoting that, but meaning that
That's prophecy.
it's still much work that needs to be done to get us to that point.
Exactly.
And any day you might have to give an account for your own actions. Any day now you might have to stand in the defense of the gospel, as it say in the record. But what that really means is you can be questioned any day now on who you are, who your affiliation, and what's this about. You don't follow Christianity, or you with them, and you're going to be judged for that spiritually, metaphysically, and physically. And you have to give an account for your own action. Each tongue must confess its own when that day comes. We all seen what happened the other day up in Capitol Hill. So other people are sacrificing based off what they believe politically. I'm just showing you what people do when they are fixed in an idea. When they really believe in something, the extent that they will go through to defend their measure. And that wasn't even dealing with religion. That's just dealing with their political views. But their political views have everything to do with their ancestry and their descent. And how their descent, what their forefathers stood for. So that we got to pay attention to. This ain't this it's a distraction in all this, but there's a lesson in that. And everything that's going down. And more's got to really be studious to these situations and have your defense up. Because, locally stuff went down around here because of that. Where it's like seeds is planted and then they blossom and then they go take action. So again, you gotta be prepared for that. And you gotta really be able to defend. If something come to your door, what you gonna do? Something come to your temple, what you gonna do? Are you gonna defend the prophet in the movement, like he said? It's a question to you and to us. But we have to make up our mind, because if the answer is no, we're not willing to defend this, then that's what he meant. But we might as well take off our card and button now. We might as well just put the fez down now and take the button off and go back to the state where he found us. If we're not going to defend it, there's no sense of proclaiming it.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people think that proclaiming it gives them the protection that they're looking for without putting in the work.
Absolutely.
And that's why a lot of people come into this. Is just no different from what people join Masonic affiliations for.
That's right.
They want to hide behind signs and symbols, but they don't want to do any work. And that's not what this is about.
They don't want to live it. Absolutely.
Islam, any questions before we move forward? Islam. Not question. Oral statement number 43. And this was testimonial from Sister Lovett Bay. past Grand Governor of Illinois at that time, said that the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, "I placed a ball on Babylon, and it is rolling down. And anyone that gets in the way is going to be ground powder." That relates to anyone that interferes with the Moorish Science Temple of America will be ground to powder. So again, these are testimonials, right? But we got to read this and read in between the lines. And you got, some things you can't take literal, some things you can. It's all up to interpretation, right? But I just want to open the floor up to that interpretation, and I just want some feedback on what does that say to you? What do you think Drew Ali was making reference to? You can put that in. What is your mind thinking about when you hear that? So,
When I hear that saying, I read that, and at first I had like at first when I first read the passage, it kind of threw me, but then it came to me that anybody that interferes with this movement without good intentions, anybody that tampers with this movement and their heart is not pure with this movement, as you stated before, taking these lessons for granted or using it for the purpose other than what it was prepared to do, will be ground to powder or will be destroyed or self-destruct. Because this knowledge will destroy you if your heart is not pure with it. So that's what it took me to. If you're not going to take this and use this for the purposes it was designed for, then it will destroy you.
Islam.
So,
Islam. Anyone else? Sister Jamila?
I think about when the prophet said that he brought us something that we can tear up. It'll tear you up.
Mm-hmm.
So that he brought us our divine national creed, brought us back our nationality and our birthright. And that if you're not right in this movement, or you do anything against this movement, which is right and exact, then you'll get torn up. You'll be ground to powder.
Absolutely.
Islam. Islam, brother.
My drawing is like with this blacks, anyone that's not, their heart is not in the movement physically or mentally, or going up against the movement it's just not accepted. I mean, ground to powder meaning that you won't win. When the prophet said you could try your way and it'll last, but it won't work. I kind of tie that into the same statement is, like I said, it's just the ground is turned to ground dust, meaning if you're not with the movement or protecting the movement or defending the movement, then you won't last. I mean, like I said, the politicians or police or whomever, like I said, you could take 15, 20 years and run the government or the earth, but it's only going to be a short period of time before the movement come back around and you'll be ground dust. Like when the prophet said one day you look outside and see $20 on the ground, you won't pick it up. It's the same science with, I'm associating the $20 with that the group of those politicians that will turn ground dust.
Islam. Sheikh Nika.
So sort of the idea of getting in the way, right, of this, what did she say? Getting in the way of this.
He said the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Getting in the way of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Mm-hmm. Anyone who interferes with the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Yes, right.
I thought she was talking about the ball, the rolling ball, right?
Yeah, but it's the same paragraph. You want me to read it again?
Yeah, just that question.
He said, I placed a ball on Babylon, and it is rolling down. And anyone that gets in the way is going to be ground to powder.
So like how the prophet said that how we, like the illustration we watched before, how they used to have to
threaten us, right, to give honor to the false Jesus idea.
Mm-hmm.
And now we praise him and we'll fight for the right to praise European ideological Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And no different from the statement that now, we try to defend our jumping now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same concept to where we get in the way of the ball, meaning that we are trying to defend, right? Something that's not ours, the carnal thoughts, the carnal customs of others.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get away of it, we're trying to protect that. And this is how we get crushed because, we're on the defense line of them.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to be outside of that. If you're outside of that, path that the ball will crush, then that means you're outside of the jurisdiction, you're outside of the customary activities of that. But if you're within the same path of those who are supposed to get crushed, then that means you're following the same beliefs and carnal customs of those who get crushed. And that's getting in the way.
Islam.
I see the passage as a seed, as certain things need to be destroyed so it can be rebuilt. So if Noble Jali is basically saying I placed the ball in Babylon, that ball is basically a cleansing. Let that ball break down all the barriers or all the de facto information stages of people can grow on. Let that ball work. Let it work, because out of that, it's going to start to rise up. As the ball going down, it's cleansing going down. So the people that get in the way of the ball to clean is any aspect is going to be to powder, because revelations, they have to rise up after it goes down.
It's not. And
can I make another statement?
Yes.
In the Bible, when it talks about how Abraham tried to take his family, Sarah and all of them, to flee away from Sodom and Gomorrah, and she turned around and turned into a pillar of salt.
That was Lot.
Lot, the story of Lot.
It was Lot.
And then she turned around and she wanted to see or have a part in the obstruction and destruction. And she became that which she was trying to flee from.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm thinking of also.
Mm-hmm.
The same idea of being turned into sand or salt or dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Turned to salt.
Mm-hmm. It's not. And all of that is definitely good thoughts and interpretations, and could be viewed many other ways too. What I get from that, in conjunction with what you already said, is it reminds me directly of Acts 7, when he talks about, like, backing up what Brother Universal was saying, how putting the ball on Babylon. We know Babylon just represents chaos and evil. And unfortunately, the system that we were enslaved under represents that. So you can look at Babylon as being de facto government, or you can look at it as just being an evil spirit. From whichever way you're looking at it, as the prophet saying he countered that. He countered the evil. Like he said, all evil spirits is moving. Every evil spirit is moving now, trying every weak mind to tear down and drag out the true foundations, which has been laid by me. But if you have love in your heart of Allah, and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear nothing you hear or see, but will sacrifice to the utmost of your very life to protect the prophet and the movement. So that's back to what I was saying. And then Acts 7 tells us that we keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple, then we entitled to the name faithful. So that's saying that the prophet put a rolling ball in motion. He already put everything in place to deal with the evil. So what we should do, and the best thing we should do, is just to get in line with that. Because like you said, if you become counterproductive of that rolling ball, then you're going to be powdered too. So he's telling us to keep it in, he saves us from the ball by telling us to keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. So if you're entitled to the name of faithful, you won't get crushed by this ball. You'll be protected on a divine level. So when the evil come, you'll be protected. But like we don't have to go out and do anything extravagant. You know what I mean? To be saved, all we gotta do is just keep in line with the structure, with the platform, with the program that he laid, which is really simple. He's not saying you got to be a scientist or be an adept on a high degree, but at least just be entitled to the name of faithful, and then you'll be saved. He said it again on another prophecy. He said, "My good Moors is going to live." So we just got to be in that category of what he's claiming is good, what he's claiming is faithful, and what he established for us. If we keep in line with that, then evil is going to bypass us. And I'm not saying that from a spooked out cliche perspective, because it could sound like that, but meaning he listed what those necessities are. What should we be doing? Following the Constitution, mention charity, and just doing different things is all part of the necessities of the Moorish Science Temple. So if we following the outreach in the program of the Moorish Science Temple, then we are going to be in that lineup of the good Moors. That's it.
That's why I said when you read the passage, whoever interferes with that, step outside of what you're really supposed to be doing, because the prophet related instructions, as you said, charity, love, and all the rest of those are the parts of you not getting rolled over by that ball. But the caveat is for those who interfere with this, that is not living this right in your heart, and you know who they are. You know who you are, rather. I mean, and you will be ground into powder, because what it says, do not misuse these lessons. These lessons are for the instructions of your life. I paraphrase that.
Islam, we understand. Islam. So I'm gonna move on and read a couple more. Sister Peyton Bay made a statement, oral statement number 52. Said the prophet said, "How would you like to have your own mayor and your own chief of police?" The Moors said yes. And in the same city that he asked that in, they were blessed to have an Asiatic mayor and a chief of police. Islam. Statement number 53. Foster Bay of Temple number 4. The prophet said, before the end of time, every knee will bow to Islam. And I like that because not from the so-called dogmatic religious perspective, but I understand that to be right and exact as well because of what Islam really represents. And this is what he meant again when he's saying in those days, the United States would be one of the most prosperous governments of the world. That's when he was saying that the lion and the lamb will eventually lie down together in yonder hills and no one will get harmed. And that is Islam. When the lion and the lamb lie down, that's symbolic of what Islam means. What Islam just means peace. So Islam is the religion of peace. So before the end of time, everything will go back to peace in the last days. So again, we have to see the prophecies behind that and just see how this whole thing is going to unfold. Again, because remember, the lessons also tell us that the final abode of man is the house of peace. That's the final abode of man. So when it's all said and done, that's the last train stop for us. Peace. So again, that statement is really in line with other lessons that we have. Absolutely. And then I'm gonna read that because it's gonna come up pre-said. Statement number 57 by Brother Blakely Bay. It will take 50 years to find out what I brought you. And if you're not careful, 50 years after I'm gone, you won't even know I have been here. And we say that about people who don't want to accept the information and never heard of Drew Ali, but I don't really just get that from that. I get that even from Moors that claim that they know him, Moors that they claim to follow him in the temple and out the temple. Like, just because we talk about Drew Ali don't mean that we really know Drew Ali and don't really understand that he was here. There's Moors that's been in this movement or affiliated with this movement 50 years, 40 years, and still can't explain to you really what he did. They can repeat what the lesson says.
Yeah.
They can go into the Quran and things of that nature, but how many of us can really give a documentary without this literature? Lock this up and have like a closed door, closed book type of conversation and tell a reporter what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali actually did. That's a difference.
Yes, a big difference.
Not saying he opened up 15 temples, branch temples, and 21 subordinate temples, or he gave people nationality cards. That's not necessarily what he did. I'm talking about what was his works behind the scenes. What did he do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, outside of the temple meetings? What did he really do? What did he accomplish? Where did he go? What results came from places he go? What meetings did he go with? Who did he sit with? What businesses did they open? Those type of things. And that's necessary, not just for understanding what the Prophet did, but knowing where the destiny of the movement is going. We can't know the destiny of this movement if we don't know what went into it, what the preparation was, what were they doing then? Because if he was killed, passed away from natural causes, whatever you want to say, if his life was taken away from him in his 40s, what did he do up until that point? If we let that go and don't highlight these things, that's no different from him saying 50 years will go by that you don't even know I was here. Because we could tell some stories right now. I know I probably can tell some stories right now of some things that he did that Moors probably never even knew that he did that. And that's an example of not even knowing that he was here. Yeah, we knew that he set this up and he did some stuff, but we really don't know what he did. And talking to other Moors and listening to other Moors on lectures and stuff like this, and when they talk, they talk as if they don't even know the Prophet was here. They'll bring his name up and give honor to him. But when you hear them keep talking, they talking about, we need to set this up. We need to do this. And because of that, I set this up and I got this in the makings and I'm about to write a book talking about this. And it's not that's not a good approach. But to say it as if it never was done, that means you don't even know the history of this movement.
Exactly.
That's like us saying, well, we're going to start the first Moorish trucking company because that needs to be done. And ain't no Moors ever did no trucking company. We'll look like a fool if we say that.
Absolutely.
But to a lot of Moors, they don't know that there was a Moorish trucking company. So to them, it might look very inspiring and look like doing something new, or now we're on the right path to something. But we didn't come in saying that. We camelbacked off of the fact that We put that out there. When we found out that exists, we camelbacked off of it, furthered it, and again, if it's not in the Holy Quran, you're not going to find that in the Moorish guide. A lot of the work that he did is not in the books.
Thank you.
And the problem is those who know don't want to discuss it, and those other people just don't really care about what Ali did because they want to be the highlight of the situation. So they want to be recorded as the first that did this, the first that thought of this. And they want their names to be the first. So even if they knew that something was already done, they won't even talk about that because they want to be acknowledged for being the first.
Exactly. Islam grants you that's the perfect example. I hear a lot of more say, well, I didn't, like you said, I didn't started this movement. Because the Prophet, see, some things y'all didn't know, the Prophet didn't teach it. The Prophet brought everything it takes to teach you to save yourself. He brought everything it takes to save the nation. As you speak, everything that you're speaking about, the Prophet has already brought. But if you just read it like you said it without no type of, I won't say understanding, I'll say overstanding, without digging in between the lines of what is being said, then, like you said, you never know if people's here. And like you trying to reinvent, man, you're trying to reinvent like a world that's already been like invented.
Mm-hmm. Islam. The Prophet brought religion. He set up a religious corporation. He didn't set up a government. So because of that, they want to put a constitution together.
Yeah.
They want to set up a government and say that was never established. Like that type of stuff falls under that rolling ball.
Exactly.
Because to me, that's clear interference.
Yeah, complete interference.
Now, it's one thing to say that we need to revolutionize it. We need to clean it up. We need to do some things to it. That's a valid statement. But to say that we need to set it up as if it was never set up, that's one of the biggest dishonoring of your forefathers that we have.
Yes.
And that type of stuff interferes with the progress of the movement, and justice will catch those type of people. Number 70, Holy Prophet told the Moors, don't endanger your life with a fool.
That's right. Wow.
Don't endanger your life with a fool. That means don't be somebody's co-defendant. You know somebody a fool, and a fool is one that's always beginning.
Always starting over.
Someone who does not learn from experience. That's the horse and mule degree, we call it. One that just has no understanding. You don't want to. Why would a man of wisdom sacrifice himself for a fool? Is the question. It's in the lessons, and we got to think about that. Are we wise? Because if once you have wisdom, then you meditate on situations, on your move. You plan your moves. You navigate cautiously, and you got to know that all company is not good company. And that shows the education that we receive from studying the Prophet's lessons. Number 76. He said, those that were with me 2,000 years ago are with me today, and those that were against me 2,000 years ago are against me today. So I said this to people a long time ago, and some people think I'm crazy, or an extremist, or whatever you want to call it. But if you're into metaphysics and those type of things, you'll understand that, especially those who study astrology and endorse the concept of incarnation and reincarnations and repeating the cycle and all of that, they can appreciate the statement and understand it. There's a lot of people, more physical people, who don't understand spirituality. They might not can't get with that.
Yeah.
But if he's telling you that he existed 2,000 years ago, then he's telling you that he was reincarnated.
Absolutely.
And he told us in many statements that he was.
Mm-hmm.
But just going off of this particular statement here, he's saying that if you was with me 2,000 years ago, you're with me today. So those faithful and loyal Moors, Canaanites, Moabites, or whatever name they went by then if you followed him then or followed the principles then,
Followed today.
then you were in the good lineup. But if you was one of the ones that was against him then you're against him now. So now you got to know the history of this. If we're dealing with 2,000 years ago, we're talking about back into the days of the era of time of Brother Yahshua, which is Brother Jesus. So if he was Jesus 2,000 years ago, and he's talking about people that was with him and people that was against him, how would you know who they are if you don't study the Bible or the Quran? So you really don't know who the enemies were if you don't, because they're not going by black people. They're not going by white people. They're not going by the English and the British. So we can't even use this information to really know who's who. If we just study the old stuff, we'll know who's who now. Because all we got to do is go back and look at who was against Jesus.
That's right.
He came to save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the pale skinned nations of Europe, who was governing a portion of Palestine at that time. But see, remember, the Jews, so-called Jews, and you gotta know who they are, at that time crucified him according to their law.
That's right.
So they were against Drew Ali.
That's right.
If you was against Jesus, you was against Drew Ali.
That's right.
Those was his enemies, was his own people.
Yes.
The Jews.
That's right.
So-called Jews. And I'm not talking about the Jews today, the Siddiqs, the ones you see. So you got to go back until then and see who they were. And even though they might not go by those same names now, they will know that he was crucified by his own people. His own people. Same thing with Drew Ali. Drew Ali in 1929 was crucified by his own people. So again, the story don't change.
That's right.
And we got to go deeper. We got to dig. We got to use that shovel and we got to dig to get to more science, to really figure out what we're dealing with here. How can you protect yourself and the movement now if you don't know who the enemy was 2,000 years ago? Because they disguise right now. They might be sitting next to you talking about Islam with a fez and turban on, and you thinking that's your boy because he proclaimed, and don't know that he the same spirit from 2,000 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
So there's a science to this. '85. It doesn't make any difference which way things look like they are going. It's all going to end up in the Asiatics' hands. So I picked that because I thought that one might have been a little hope and inspiration for us dealing with these influences that's going on out here.
But Islam, yes, absolutely.
Number 87, let your good deeds outnumber your bad deeds. And when you pass away, you don't have anything to worry about.
That's right.
That's a good death.
That's a good death. Yes, absolutely.
That's what he meant by have a good death.
right.
Islam. That's when you can really go in peace. Because the Quran tells us when the life of man is done, all done, the work of man is all done. You know, so your garb is needed no more once you do your job. You tarry here many ages until your lessons are all learned. So you can really go in peace when you know that you completed your earth task and there's nothing else here for you to do or accomplish. Then you accept that next round.
Absolutely.
But then it's that guilty part of man, and I don't want to die. You know, what is that? I mean, now that we know the signs, we can say that. You know, but what is that really? If we're trying to hold on to the earth cord, then that means we know that we didn't do our job. Because what we want more time to do what? More vices.
Doing the same thing.
So if we were spared and given, and a lot of us probably have. I know I have. I know is a few times that my life probably was going to come to an end. You know, so, but I'm sure everybody can relate to something like that, but you got to look at what was the reason you were spared.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not just spared just for just because you're a good guy.
No.
You know, just because you got a child to raise. That's not why you spared. You know, so if you that individual that's been spared, you gotta look at the reason why you were spared.
Absolutely.
You see sometimes people minister society, their life might have been spared, and you just like, man, who got their hand on him? You know, and that person might not even know themselves, but just God got a plan.
That's right.
And then some people that might just been gone just because Allah knew that they wasn't gonna do nothing. So there's no need for you to hang around, buddy, because you ain't gonna do nothing anyway. Because the script is already laid out.
It's already scripted. Definitely.
Everybody's life is already pre-scripted. So I mean,
absolutely.
If we're gonna leave here early, is already written.
It's already written.
If we're gonna live to 95, is already written.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's all a script. And, you know, I watch movies a lot. They don't like watching movies with me because from the beginning, I can peep the whole movie.
Yeah.
I can really, as soon as I see the first 20 minutes of it, I already know how it's going to end. I already know who's who, what role this person going to play, and I call it. I might not even watch the movie because I'm like, listen, I already know what's going to go down. He's going to be the star of the movie. You know, he's going to be spared or whatever, or he's going to die at the end and whatever. You know what I mean? But it's sort of like that. Like Allah knows the movie. You know, he wrote the movie, so he already knows how it's going to end. It's just if we don't know it, then we'll be watching a movie that's just like amped up, waiting to see what's going to happen. And that's the part we play in life where we just spectators, most of us. We just tarry here as spectators, and we have no clue on what's going down. We talk about, oh man, they doing this now, or they doing that, or COVID-19, or man, they doing this, vaccinations, really what they trying to do. You know, some of us just live and don't have a clue what's going on.
Absolutely.
Oh, we black? Oh yeah, well, we black and we're proud. Okay, well, that's how you see it. Can't watch the movie with you. I got a couple more, then I'm done. 95. The prophet said the third and the fourth generation will see the good of my work. Let's translate that. A generation is. Well, that's what I want to talk about because we say that because he talked about the new Moors. He said in the year 2000, the Moors were coming to their own. So he made references and made statements. And then this is another one. He said the third and the fourth. So now we got to look at what is that. They estimate a generation to be between 30 and 40 years. 20 and 30 years. Right. That's what a generation is estimated as. So if you just went with the minimum, which is 20 years, 24 generations would be 80 years.
So that's 3 generations right there. So we're in the 4th generation.
And again, according to what number you use, if you went with 30, then that'd be 120 years.
We're still in the 4th generation.
Yeah. So, like I said yesterday on another forum, but the time is now. The time is now, like, because Moors take shots and bash the old Moors, or Moors wasn't doing nothing all this time, and we should have had this by now. We should have had that, and because of this, we got to get together and we got to do. And you're not looking at the point that we too busy pointing the finger at old Moors, saying it is their fault. But the prophet never said that they were going to do it.
Never did.
He never said that they were going to he never said that they were going to be the ones to fulfill his law.
No, he did.
He said it's going to take you 50 years or better just to understand. He didn't say in 50 years you was going to do what I told you to do. He said you're just going to start to understand it in 50 years. So you still another couple of generations after that before it starts to really work. You got to plant a seed.
That's right.
You know, so you got to look at it like, give it some type of credit. Like the 3rd and 4th generations is when you're going to really start seeing the activity starting to manifest.
Okay, if you don't mind, the
Yes,
prophet said, the new Moors that are coming in now, coming in with their eyes wide open, they will be the one to come and you old Moors have to move out your seats. I'm paraphrasing that part,
Mm-hmm.
but they will be the ones that will fulfill my law.
Mm-hmm.
That was what he said. Now that part he did say. I didn't say the whole thing exactly like it was written, but that was just what he meant.
It's not. So what generation are you?
I would be the same. Well, I would be just a.
You don't have to answer that, bro.
Okay, that was rhetorical.
You don't have to answer that.
Gotcha.
Islam. So that's going to conclude Islam. So I just wanted to make it about prophet, you know. Again, this is going to, I don't want to say end it because there's another lesson to that. He says that, you know, 1 week after his solar return on his birthday is really deemed the Moor's New Year. So remember, man marks time, and our prophet has every right to mark time, because that's who actually marks times are the prophets. And certain leaders try to come out and replace what the prophets do, and they might do some stuff too, or try to mark time. But prophets are ones that really mark time. You know, this is where ages come from. So being said that, he said that a week later, which is a year later, according to science, becomes our Moor's New Year. So some Moors will still be honoring and celebrating the next week, or this week of Moorish festivities going on, and just celebrations and rituals or whatever people might do. But just in our minds, we just want to give acknowledgement and honor to that, and don't be afraid to push that idea to tell people that, you know, this is our New Year's. Friday is our New Year's. You know, we're not dealing with fiscal, but this is our Moorish New Year. You know, outside of the year, we might look at the equinox as a new year, and that's the astrological new year,
Right.
Celestial new year, but this is physically our Moorish New Year, because it's 1 week after our prophet's birthday. You know, those are things that give him honor personally, and to show dedication and loyalty to him for who he is and what he has done. You know, that's honoring our prophet. Everybody else honoring their prophet in their own ways. You know, so we got to show them that he's really a prophet to us. But remember, we're following a declaration and laws that he established. You got to get behind that idea in order to be recognized by these people. Because if you just one of these ones out here just using the prophet for your own agenda by saying, yeah, I acknowledge Drew Ali or I follow Drew Ali, but you ain't really following him, it's going to tell. Islam? Islam. So with that, that's going to end this meeting. I'm just going to rise for a prayer. Sheikh Nika, if you could follow us out. May Allah guide our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creating principles. This we ask in the holy name, the seven Elohim. Amen. Islam. Meeting is now closed.